Hi everyone, welcome back to Maono Africa podcast. My name is Jessie and today on set I have my co-host. And today we are going to, on set, we have a guest. She's going to tell us more about herself. Welcome.
Thank you for the warm welcome. My name's Sophie Hicks and I'm a program manager with the Freedom Fund. And I am working on the Kenya hotspot program with Ruth, who some of you may already have met. And my main role is to support the grant management and implementation of the project in Kenya.
Okay.
Thank you. Welcome to Maono Africa podcast.
Thank you.
So tell us more about the Freedom Fund.
So the Freedom Fund is an international donor, and our funding sources are mainly large international foundations and governments, and we implement programs across the world now. So we have programs in Indonesia, Thailand, Myanmar, Ethiopia, now Kenya, Brazil, and we're expanding to the Amazon and also to West Africa.
Yeah, that's good. Now in Africa, Can you tell us some of the countries that you work with?
So we're in Ethiopia, Kenya, and in West Africa we will be working in Liberia and Nigeria. But that program is still in the inception phase. And also in the East Africa region we're planning to expand, but we haven't decided exactly where yet. So maybe to Uganda, but it's TBC.
Okay, thank you. In Kenya, which other organizations are you working with?
So we're working with 6 grassroots organisations, Anchor Africa, Azadi, Kana Family, Kutea, I think I pronounced that right, and Meisha Girls.
Okay. In Kenya, which are the programs? For example, in Maono, we have the End Child Domestic Work Exploitation and Abuse. In other organizations, which programs are running?
So across all of those organisations, the programmes are all focused on child domestic work.
Okay.
So they're mostly inception grants. So because we've only just started working in Kenya, we don't have a full hotspot strategy yet. We're actually this week in the process of finalising and validating it. And next week we'll be having a meeting with all of our partners to validate the strategy. As of now, we've given small inception grants to the 6 partners, including Maono Africa, to start doing some small programs with child domestic workers prior to a full hotspot strategy.
Okay. In regards to the giving of grants, what qualifications do these organizations need to have for them to qualify for the grants?
That's a really good question. So our main thing that we look for is organisations working on the front line of an issue that are really close to the communities that they serve and really know those communities well. So we really look for programmatic strength more than anything. But of course, in the international development sector, it's also important that our partners are able to meet donor requirements. So we do look for organisations that have some official processes and policies in place. But if they aren't there, then a big component of our work is working with the organisations to help them build capacity in the areas that they need. So our main criteria is doing great work with the community, and our second criteria is having the potential to have strong systems and processes in place, and also having the enthusiasm and willingness to work on building capacity.
That's good.
Okay. For the Grassroots organization which you are working with, how do you do your capacity building to the organizations?
So in 2 ways. We have our mandatory requirements as the Freedom Fund, and we ask all of our partners to meet those. We try and keep those mandatory requirements to a bare minimum. We don't want to overwhelm our partners. But at the start of a partnership, when we're taking on organisations as full hotspot partners, we ask them to undergo a due diligence assessment. and we hope that our partners will meet all of the requirements, but if there are some gaps, we would help them build capacity in those areas according to a set time frame, and we provide the funding to enable the organisation to do that. So that's one wing of the capacity building. And on the other side, we also really want our partners to take ownership over the capacity building. So we also have a process whereby the organisation analyses themselves and looks where they feel they have gaps and help that organisation come up with an action plan to meet the gaps and give them funding to do that. So we hope to foster more ownership over the capacity building process and not just tell our partners what to do.
Okay, and maybe if I may ask, you've talked about the hotspot areas and the organizations. Mm-hmm. What do you mean by hotspots?
Oh, I'm sorry, that's a big one. I've worked for the Freedom Fund for 5 years, so some of the terminology is just too in my brain. So our hotspots are our programs.
Okay.
So by hotspot we mean when we go into a country like Kenya, we would take on our partners, and they would be the core of the hotspot, by which I mean program, and we would then also try and get those partners to work together and collaborate and build a coalition through which they can work together to combat the main issue that the hotspot aims to address. And also by hotspot I mean all of the technical assistance providers that we employ to help our partners build capacity.
Okay.
Yeah, I hope that our viewers now get what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, on a research done by the Freedom Fund,
Mm-hmm.
you outlined that most children who are being exploited are girls. In your view, what do you think is the reason behind it?
Behind child domestic workers being mainly girls?
Yes.
I suppose the nature of domestic work is largely female.
Okay.
It's across the world, domestic workers, the majority of domestic workers are women. That's not to say that boys and men aren't affected by the issue, but I think it's primarily an issue that affects women, unfortunately.
Yeah, is it because the girls are viewed as the weaker link, or?
I think historically the bulk of domestic workers always fall into women. I mean, it's the same in the UK as well. It's the same all over the world.
Yeah.
So I would say that's why. I mean, even in my own family in the UK, it's fallen to women. So I just
it happens.
It happens. Yeah.
Okay. Which other programs are you implementing worldwide?
So all of our programs aim to combat modern slavery in all of its different forms. We don't just work on child domestic work. We also work on, in Thailand and Indonesia, addressing slavery and trafficking in the fishing industry. It's a big problem in East Asia. In Brazil, we work on child sexual exploitation and trying to combat that issue. And we're about to start working on forced labour in the Amazon. And in Ethiopia, we work with domestic workers who migrate to the Middle East for work and face exploitation in countries like Lebanon and Saudi Arabia. And actually in Ethiopia, we've also started working on the issue of child domestic work as well.
Oh, nice.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you get into a country, like let's say here in Kenya, how do you work with the government to implement your policies across the country?
That's a very good question. We really try and work very closely with the government. What we don't want to do is come in and create a whole different set of systems.
Yeah, true.
So we want to work with the existing community and government structures that are already there in a country. So in different countries that takes different forms. In Kenya, we really hope to work closely with the government once we've got our full hotspot strategy in place. So that will involve mapping out the different government institutions, what they're already doing with child domestic workers, and looking at how we can work with them and collaborate.
Okay. I hope now we understand all about that, and so that somebody would just, you find that somebody might come and say maybe you don't have the legal framework and all that. At least now our viewers know, they are informed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's been we've done quite a deep context analysis through I think consultancies based in Kenya, and that's a big part of our approach to any programmatic work that we do.
So the Freedom Fund has helped many people.
Mm-hmm.
Can you outline for us some of the impact it has on the communities that it has helped?
Yeah, so I guess our most recent, the most recent thing that we can claim some contribution to, I can't say that, you know, we're the sole reason behind a positive impact, because there's lots of things that that work to create positive impact. But in our program in the pool, that's our oldest program. We started that in 2014. And that was working with a group of bonded labourers called the Harachawa, who were in intergenerational bonded labour. So you were born into this particular cultural group and you were automatically in slavery. And so over the course of 8 years, our hotspot there worked with the Harachawa groups, local civil society organisations, government, and there was a lot of government policy advocacy that went on. And this summer, the Harachawa were eventually declared free by the government, because part of the problem had been that they weren't officially liberated.
Yeah.
They were still constitutionally enslaved.
Yeah.
So that's probably the work that we did on that with government stakeholders and civil society organisations helped to contribute to that liberation declaration. So that's one of our biggest successes to date.
Yeah, congratulations for that.
I can't take any responsibility, but
you and the team.
Our team in the pool
Yeah.
really did good work.
Yeah, now on that, with all that, what are the parameters you put in place to ensure that these people that you have helped and assisted do not fall back prey to the same issue?
That's a really good question. So whenever we approach an issue, we try and look at it from all different sides. So part of that will be liberations, awareness raising, and then another side will be building the economic and social resilience of communities to try and boost their economic resources and ability to withstand shocks and to earn a good income. So hopefully once those communities have reached a certain stage of the programme and been freed or liberated or whatever, they then won't fall back into a situation of slavery, because they'll have the means to earn a good income and won't have to take out debts and they won't get into the kind of situations where they could fall prey again to bonded labour or slavery or trafficking or anything like that.
That's great. Actually, because when we were supposed to start, we forgot. Can you tell us about that Freedom Fund? Where is it based?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
So we are based all over the world, but we have our headquarters in London. We also have an office in New York, but our main office is in London, and that's where I'm based. I'm English. You might be able to tell.
Yeah, true.
We also have a quite a large office in Ethiopia now. That's grown over the last 5 years. But in most of the countries where we work, we're not registered, but we have staff on the ground, like Ruth, who is the senior program manager for the program in Kenya.
Okay. Now, like in Kenya now, can you say so far, are the things going in the direction that you people as the trust fund, as the Freedom Fund, wanted to go?
Yes, absolutely. Everyone's really excited about the program in Kenya. The inception grants and the programs funded through those grants are going on very well. Still early, not all of our partners have submitted reports yet because the deadlines haven't come. not because they're late. Just to clarify that. But everyone is, I think we've identified some really brilliant grassroots organisations to work with, including Maono Africa. And I would say the programme is picking up a lot of momentum, and we hope to have our full strategy validated very soon and to give out larger grants that will enable our partners to really implement the programs to address child domestic work on a much larger scale.
Yeah, that's good. And on that point of now giving larger grants, are you going to review these organizations, or will you still work with the same organizations that you have in order to give the larger grants?
So we're reviewing the inception grants we've given, the success of the programs that have been implemented, and we're seeing how the work of our current partners align with our hotspot strategy. Yeah. We haven't yet completed the hotspot strategy. We plan to do that by the end of the month, I hope. But we really hope to invite our current partners to apply for full hotspot grants.
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
So I saw that you have a project, Freedom Raising, which helps the survivors.
Yes.
Do you think the program will reach us in Kenya?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. So Freedom Rising is a leadership program that works with women, survivors of slavery, and staff of the grassroots organisations we partner with, and actually other grassroots organisations who aren't our partners. And that leadership training comes in the form of residentials, where the participants learn leadership skills and kind of look into themselves and what they can bring as leaders. And so far it's been implemented in India and Brazil. I think the plan is to roll it out in most of our hotspot countries, but I'm afraid to say I don't know when it will reach. Do you think that there's a place for it in Kenya? Do you think it's needed?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, just for clarity and for our viewers, can you at least outline for them explain then outline modern slavery?
I'll do my best.
Yeah, no pressure.
So modern slavery comes in lots of forms. You have child domestic work, which Maono Africa is working on, where children are brought to work for very little money or no money, and are often exploited and abused, and are also children, so shouldn't be working in any form. They need to experience their childhood. So I would say in the case of child domestic work, exploitation and abuse is kind of central to what we're trying to combat, and that's really at the heart of why slavery is such a modern slavery is such a difficult and harmful issue. In all forms of modern slavery, you have that component. So we also work on trafficking, bonded labour, sexual exploitation. All of those issues make up the problem of modern slavery. I'm sure there's a much better definition on our website.
We hope we will be able to end the modern slavery in our communities as much as we can. So on the causes, do you think we can tackle the causes and help reduce the modern as a way to reduce the modern slavery?
Tackle
the causes of modern slavery in our communities.
The causes.
To help reduce the numbers, eradicate modern slavery.
I'm sure, yeah. I mean, I think working on the front line with communities who are affected most by it is one of the best ways to combat the issues. I think so often, community members who might employ child domestic workers, for instance, aren't intending to do anything wrong. They might just not know.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of it is awareness raising, advocacy, building skills, empowering communities economically and socially. And I think, the program in Kenya is focusing on all of those things, so I'm sure it will be able to address the causes.
Yeah, great. And now, apart from like the organizations, the Freedom Fund, what other means do they use to create this awareness? Apart from like now they're using the organizations, like are there like the social network systems they put in place?
So you mean how is it creating awareness of the issue?
Yeah, of the issue. Apart from like using now the organizations, yeah, do they have like the media and all that?
Yeah, so we have a communications team which has grown a lot in the last few years, because I think we realised that we needed to communicate more about our work.
Yeah.
I think we're a strong implementer. We run really strong programs, but before we weren't maybe telling the world what we were doing. So now we do a lot of that via social media, news articles, and in our different hotspot programs, communication plays a big role, and I think it's going to play a huge role in the Kenya hotspot.
Yeah, we hope so.
So can you tell the viewers your social media handles, where they can find you and find more information about the Freedom Fund?
Yes, I believe our social media handles are below you on the screen, so if you take a look, you can find us.
Okay. Now, as we wind up, where do you see in Kenya, specifically in Kenya, in the next maybe 5 years, where do you see the whole project going or being, or how many people do you think you'll have targeted by then?
So we don't have an exact number that we've set for our target. However, I think the overall goal of the hotspot is to create a collective that's very empowered of grassroots organisations, government institutions, and child domestic workers themselves that have a strengthened capacity to protect child domestic workers from abuse and exploitation. So that's our overall goal for the next 5 years.
Good.
Thank you for coming to Maono Africa podcast. Thank you for doing the interview with us. We are very grateful. We hope that we can do this another time when we are in Kenya again.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you to all our viewers for tuning in to today's conversation. Please remember to subscribe, like, and share. Thank you.
Well, what I would have to say is that it's been great to be here with Maono Africa today. I think they're doing amazing work with their community centre and their programme to combat child domestic work. So I would say please do support Maono Africa. And also just look out for our upcoming work in Kenya as the Freedom Fund. We'll share more on our hotspot strategy once we've got the final version, and I have great hopes for our programme here. I think we can really help with the issue of child domestic work and helping civil society organisations to do what they do best in combating it.